Kale stood on the raised platform, trembling as bright lights shone down on him. The metal cuffs around his wrists gleamed coldly, cutting into his pale skin. He bowed his head slightly, afraid to meet the faces in the crowd. Every pair of eyes felt like a harsh judgment, reminding him how small and helpless he truly was. Around him, bidders whispered to one another, their words sharp and cruel. Kale could not understand their language, but he recognized the tone of disdain. A cruel laugh echoed through the hall, and he flinched as if struck. His heart pounded wildly, and for a moment he imagined himself back on his home world, safe among his own people. But that place was gone now, destroyed in the war he had barely survived. He closed his eyes and held tight to a single memory. The soft touch of his mother's hand as she tucked him into bed, words of comfort humming in his mind, he pictured. Her gentle smile, and felt a warm pulse of longing. Even here, surrounded by metal and strangers, that memory glowed inside him like a fragile flame. A voice boomed from the auctioneer's stand, calling for higher offers. Kale lifted his head and saw a long row of humans, their faces cold with calculation. He wondered what they saw when they looked at him. Did they see a being with hopes and feelings, or just another commodity to buy and sell? His chest tightened. As the bids rose, each number felt like a drop of water on dry earth, slowly draining him of strength. Kale's slender frame shook, and for a moment he felt tears sting his eyes. He blinked rapidly, determined not to show weakness. Tears were a luxury he could not afford, yet even in that harsh place, a small spark of hope flickered. He thought of the stories his father once told him, stories of kindness that could bloom in the desert, a friendship that could bridge any gap. Could that really be true? Could someone here offer him more than chains and cruel laughter? Another? Laughter broke out louder this time, and Kale's heart sank. He gripped the edge of the platform, knuckles white. The thought of being broken again, used without care, filled him with fear. But beneath that fear, a strange calm began to grow. It whispered, "You must survive. Hold on to that hope, no matter how faint." He forced himself to stand taller, shoulders straightening despite the weight of his cuffs. The lights above him felt less oppressive now, as if they could not burn out the small light inside him. He breathed deeply, letting the rhythm steady his trembling body. In that breath, he chose to believe he still had worth. A soft rustle passed through the crowd, like a breeze stirring leaves. Kale turned his head, curious. Was someone whispering words of comfort? Or merely another cruel joke passing from lip to lip? He did not know. But his heart beat a little less wildly, as if sensing something new on the air. He closed his eyes once more, focusing on the steady pulse in his ears. Each beat reminded him he was alive. Each breath reminded him he had not yet given up. So he stood, trembling but unbroken. On the auction platform, caught between fear and hope, waiting for the next call that would decide his fate. Maya slipped into a shadowed corner of the auction hall, her heart pounding beneath a simple gray tunic. She had heard whispers of the cruel trade that took place here, but nothing had prepared her for the sight of Kale standing on the platform. His pale skin and trembling frame spoke of long nights spent in fear. Maya pressed her hand to her chest and felt a tightening as she watched him flinch at every call for bids. She knew she had to do something, even if it drained her last credits. As the auctioneer's voice rose, Maya listened to the rising price. She glanced around at the other buyers, wealthy merchants with cold eyes and sharpened features. They treated Kale like a broken machine, something to be bought and discarded. Maya shivered at their ease, imagining the life they would force upon him. Endless toil, no kindness, no rest. A fierce protectiveness bloomed in her chest, and she felt tears sting her eyes. She swallowed hard, steadying herself, and raised a trembling finger. A murmur swept through the crowd as Maya's bid echoed in the hall. Many heads turned, surprise flashing in their eyes. She felt her cheeks flush, but refused to let doubt take hold. When the next bid came from a tall man with a polished mask, Maya met his gaze without fear. She nodded, willing herself to hold firm. The mask slipped for a moment, revealing a glint of annoyance. Maya felt a thrill of resolve. If she could keep bidding, maybe she could offer Kale something better than chains. With each number called, Maya forced herself to speak again. 7,000. Her voice quavered, but she spoke clearly. She sensed Kale's gaze on her, even though he could not understand her words. His eyes flicked upward, meeting hers for a fraction of a second. In that moment, Maya saw something unexpected. A small spark of hope lighting his emerald eyes. Her heart swelled as she realized her actions meant more than saving one life. They could prove that kindness still existed in this harsh universe. The masked bidder hesitated, then offered a higher sum. Maya glanced down at a small pouch at her side. Her final credits. She bit her lip and whispered to herself, "For him." She raised her voice again. 8,000. A hush fell over the crowd. The masked bidder lowered his head and looked away. Maya's chest tightened with relief and fear. Relief that she had won. Fear at what this rescue might cost her. But she would not turn back now. When the auctioneer declared the sale, Maya exhaled so loudly she worried everyone would hear. She felt a rush of protectiveness as she watched Kale's tense shoulders relax ever so slightly. 2 guards approached, ready to escort him to her side. Maya stepped forward, holding out her hand. She knelt, so she would not tower over Kale, and spoke softly. Though he could not understand her language, her gentle tone and the warmth in her eyes reached him where words could not. Kale hesitated, uncertainty and relief warring in his expression. Slender fingers curled around Maya's offered hand, and he let her help him down from the platform. As they moved through the crowd, Maya kept her hand at his back, a steady anchor guiding him away from the place of judgment. Kale's breath came in soft gasps, and he glanced back once, as if saying goodbye to the only world he had known. Maya squeezed his hand and whispered, "You are safe now." Outside the hall, Maya led Kale into the cool evening air. The stars blinked overhead, distant and yet familiar. Kale drew in a shaky breath, as if tasting freedom for the first time. Now wrapped a loose cloak around his shoulders and offered him a small smile. In that moment, Kale understood something profound, that humans were capable of kindness, even in the darkest places. His heart swelled with a cautious hope, and for the first time since the war, he dared to imagine a life beyond the auction block. Maya guided Kale down a narrow corridor lit by soft, humming lights. The door at the end slid open with a gentle hiss, revealing her workshop. Metal tables stood crowded with strange devices, half-finished droids, broken engines, and scattered tools. The air smelled of oil and warm metal. Maya motioned for Kale to step inside, her eyes kind and steady. He hesitated, then crossed the threshold, each footstep echoing softly. She led him to a wide workbench piled with cloths and simple medical supplies. Maya removed her gloves and offered her bare hands to Kale. "It's safe here," she said softly, though he did not know her words. The calm tone wrapped around him like a blanket. Kale edged closer, eyes wide with uncertainty. Maya gently lifted his arm and pried off the cold metal cuff. It fell away with a soft clink. Kale's skin bore red marks where the cuffs had pressed. Maya took a soft cloth, dampened it, and pressed it to the bruises. Kale flinched at first, but the cloth's gentle pressure soothed him. He closed his eyes, letting out a quiet breath. Maya hummed a soft melody as she worked, her song unfamiliar but comforting. Each note seemed to chase away a little more of his fear. When she finished, Maya rummaged under the bench and produced a simple tunic. It was soft fabric in muted blue, worn but clean. She held it out to Kale, touched it with trembling fingers, feeling its warmth. He slipped out of his ragged robe and let her help him into the tunic. It felt strange to wear clothes chosen for him, not forced upon him by cruel masters. He felt dignity returning, thread by thread. Maya motioned toward a low cot in the corner, draped with a faded blanket. Kale approached it with tentative steps. He sank onto the mattress, the springs creaking but firm. Maya knelt beside him and placed a small bowl of lukewarm soup on a nearby crate. Steam curled upward, carrying the scent of vegetables and spices. Kale stared at the bowl, unsure how to eat. Maya lifted a small spoon and fed him a gentle spoonful. The soup tasted simple but nourishing, and Kale swallowed gratefully. As he ate, Maya retrieved a thin metal brace from a shelf. Kale looked down to see his left leg bent awkwardly, muscles weak from days of standing in chains. Maya worked swiftly, aligning the brace along his calf and securing it with soft straps. Each click of the clasp echoed in the quiet room. When she finished, Kale gingerly tested his weight. He rose unsteadily, then stood tall, supported by Maya's careful craftsmanship. A shy smile bloomed on his lips. Night settled outside, but the workshop's lights glowed on. Maya brought forward a simple projector and placed a small crystal disc into its slot. The machine whirred and cast a shifting image on the wall, an open field of purple grass under twin suns. Maya pointed at the scene and then at Kale, as if asking if he knew this world. Kale's eyes widened. The image matched a memory he thought lost forever, his home planet's distant fields. He placed a hand over his heart, feeling tears prick his eyes. Maya sat beside him and placed her hand over his. Though they spoke different languages, their silence spoke volumes. Kale reached out and laid his hand over hers. In that simple touch, he felt understanding and acceptance. The workshop, once just a place of gears and metal, became a haven. He realized that kindness could be built like any machine, piece by piece, with care and intention. As the image faded, Maya smiled and gestured toward a small table stacked. With books and tools, she opened a book filled with diagrams of simple machines. Kale peeked at the drawings, and Maya's finger traced the lines of a device that looked like a wheel attached to an axle. She tapped his shoulder, then the page, then the device hanging on the wall. Kale nodded, excitement sparking in his eyes. In that moment he understood he was not just rescued, he was invited to learn, to grow, to create. Kale sat at the workbench beside Maya, his heart lighter than it had been in months. As they leaned over the diagrams, their heads almost touching, he felt for the first time that he belonged somewhere. The workshop's hum became a lullaby, and Kale whispered a silent promise to himself. He would repay this kindness with all the skill and hope he had left, and together they would build something new from the broken pieces of their past. Maya rose early the next morning, the soft hum of her workshop greeting her like an old friend. She found Kale already awake on the cot, sunlight filtering through a small window. His eyes followed her as she gathered fresh cloths and a bowl of warm water. She smiled and motioned for him to sit. Though words still felt strange between them, her gentle nods and calm tone made him feel safe. Kale stood and let Maya guide him to a low table. She poured the warm water over a soft cloth and handed it to him. He pressed the cloth to his bruised arm, wincing as the warmth eased the sting. Maya knelt beside him and wrapped gentle bandages around the injury. Each movement was careful and precise, as if she were handling something priceless. Kale watched her, surprised at the kindness there. When the bandages were secure, Maya stood and crossed the room to a small cabinet, retrieved a faded book and held it out to Kale. The cover showed delicate flowers etched in silver. Kale took it with trembling fingers. Maya tapped the cover, then her chest, and then the book again. He understood. This was a story for him. He opened the book and read the first lines aloud, his voice soft but steady. As Kale read, Maya arranged a tray of simple breakfast. Fresh fruit, warm bread, and a sweet drink in a clay cup. The table was small but tidy, a quiet invitation to share a meal. Kale closed the book and looked at Maya, gratitude shining. In his eyes, sat and broke a piece of bread, offering some to Maya. She nodded gratefully. And they ate in peaceful silence, two strangers joined by simple kindness. After breakfast, Maya returned to the workbench. She pulled down an old hollow projector and set it on the table. Kale watched curiously as she inserted a glowing crystal. The machine flickered to life, projecting the stars of her home system. Above them, Maya pointed to each star and then to herself, as if to say these were her memories too. Kale's lips curved into a gentle smile. He placed his hand on hers, then withdrew his own, and reached for a small crystal of his own making. He held the crystal out to Maya. It caught the light and refracted tiny rainbows across the wall. Maya's eyes lit up with wonder. She accepted the crystal and traced its edges with her fingertip. Kale felt his chest swell. He had given her something precious, just as she had given him safety. As evening approached, Maya brought out 2 folded cloth mats and set them beside a low shelf filled with musical instruments. She tapped a small drum and then the strings of a lute-like instrument. Cale's head tilted as he recognized the gentle rhythm of a song his mother used to hum. Maya began to play. The notes were simple, but they floated in the workshop like a soft breeze. Cale closed his eyes and let the melody carry him back to childhood fields and warm hearths. When the song ended, Cale reached for a small flute resting on the shelf. He lifted it to his lips and played a single note. The sound was shaky at first, but Maya encouraged him with a gentle nod. He played again, this time more confidently, filling the room with a hopeful tune. Maya joined in on the drum, her steady beat grounding his melody. Together, they created a sound unlike any they had heard before. Harmony of 2 worlds. Night settled softly, and Maya laid out a simple dinner of vegetables and broth. They ate side by side, talking in gestures and brief phrases. Cale pointed to his heart, then to Maya, and then to the workshop. Maya smiled and tapped the bench, as if to say this place was home for them both. Cale nodded, his eyes shining with gratitude. Before sleep, Maya produced a small blank journal and handed it to Cale. The pages were crisp and waiting for stories. Cale opened it and wrote the date in clumsy script. He then drew a simple picture of a planet with 2 suns, and beneath it, a small figure holding out a hand. He closed the journal and showed it. To Maya, she traced the drawing with her finger and pressed her hand to her heart. That night, Cale lay on the cot, the journal tucked under his arm. The workshop's hum was a lullaby, the bandages soft against his skin, and the stars above whispered promises of healing and hope. For the first time in a long time, he slept without fear, confident that tomorrow would bring new pages to fill, new chances to heal both wounds and hearts. The next morning, a gentle knock sounded at the workshop door. Maya opened it to find 2 curious neighbors, a soft-spoken mechanic named Oren and a cheerful language tutor called Leela. They peered inside at Cale, seated at the workbench, studying a set of gears. Their eyes widened in surprise and delight. Maya invited them in with a warm smile, and Cale stood, heart fluttering with both excitement and nerves. Oren carried a small bag of fresh fruits and nuts. He set them on the table and cleared his throat. With careful gestures, he pointed to Cale's brace and then to his own toolkit. Cale understood immediately, smiled and motioned for Oren to show him how to sharpen a simple wrench. As Oren worked, Cale watched and copied every movement, feeling his confidence grow with each turn of the handle. Leela pulled out a stack of colored cards covered in symbols. She placed them on the table and motioned Cale forward. He leaned in, curious, and touched a card that showed 2 figures holding hands. Leela spoke a soft phrase and repeated it slowly. Cale listened, his brow furrowed, then repeated the words with a shaky voice. Leela clapped softly and offered another card. Soon, Cale was forming short sentences, his eyes bright with pride. Maya observed from the corner, her heart swelling. She realized that Cale's smile had returned fuller than she had ever seen. She moved to a small shelf and retrieved a metal Pazula set of interlocking rings. She handed it to Cale and watched as he picked it up. His fingers traced the cold metal, and he turned the rings this way and that. With a quiet murmur, he separated the pieces and reassembled them with ease. He looked up and met Maya's eyes. Gratitude shone in both their gazes. As afternoon light filled the room, more visitors arrived. A soft-spoken musician brought a small keyboard, and together with Cale, they created simple melodies. Painter rolled out a canvas and asked Cale to describe the fields of his home world. Though words still felt new, Cale pointed to colors and shapes, guiding the painter's brush. Soon, the canvas bloomed with purple grasses under twin. Sons of memory made real by human hands. By evening, the workshop felt alive with laughter and gentle conversation. Cale stood at the center, watching each newcomer offer a gift, food, music, language lessons, art supplies. He realized that humans were sharing pieces of themselves, inviting him into their world. His chest swelled as he recognized that kindness could spread like light in darkness. He bowed his head in thanks, tears of joy glistening at the corners of his eyes. Maya placed a hand on Kayla's shoulder and guided him to a small table. She lifted a steaming pot of tea and poured 2 cups. Kale accepted his cup, warming his hands around it. He took a careful sip, tasting spice and warmth. He offered the other cup to Maya, who nodded and drank deeply. In that simple ritual, they honored a new friendship and the bonds forming. Between many worlds, when the last guest departed, the workshop grew quiet. Kale and Maya sat side by side at the workbench, the afternoon's gifts scattered around them. Kale reached into his pack and pulled out a small mechanical flower he had crafted earlier. He placed it on Maya's workbench and stepped back. Maya picked up the flower, its petals delicate metal, and pressed it to her chest. Her eyes shone with gratitude. Night settled softly, and Maya flicked off the main lights. A soft lamp glowed beside the cot where Kale rested. He sat on its edge, gazing at the tools and gifts lining the walls. He felt a peaceful contentment he had thought forever lost. In this small workshop, broken pieces had been repaired, jeers, hearts, and memories. And as he lay down to sleep, he knew that this kindness would reach far beyond their walls, awakening hope in every soul it touched. Early one morning, Maya and Kale stood before a battered table in the workshop, lit by a single lamp. On its surface lay forged documents, small data drives, and rough sketches of the auction house. Maya tapped the papers and then pointed to Kale as if asking, "Can you help?" Kale nodded, though his chest fluttered with nerves. He had never taken part in anything so risky. Still, he felt the steady comfort of Maya's presence. Her calm eyes told him she believed in him, and that belief gave him strength. Together, they spread out the blueprints of the auction house. Maya traced the main entrance, the guards, posts, and the service corridors. Kale leaned close, his fingers dancing over the lines. He pointed at a narrow maintenance hatcha, secret way in. Maya smiled, her eyes shining with hope. She tapped his shoulder in gratitude, and Kale felt warmth spread through his chest. He realized that every careful plan brought them closer to freedom for others like him. Over the next days, Kale worked under Maya's patient guidance. She taught him how to reprogram the data drives to mimic security clearances. His slender fingers flew over the tiny circuits, soldering and coding with care. Each successful test made his heart swell with pride. When a drive failed, Maya encouraged him with gentle words. Kale felt a growing confidence. He was no longer the broken being on the auction block, but a skilled engineer whose work mattered. Meanwhile, Maya sought allies among the workshop's visitors. She spoke quietly with Oren, the mechanic, explaining the plan and showing the blueprints. Oren agreed, offering tools and knowledge of the port's back tunnels. Leela, the language tutor, volunteered to practice code phrases with Kale so he could answer guard challenges. Even the cheerful painter agreed to create distraction holograms. For cover, each friend gave what they could, weaving themselves into the mission's fabric. Their kindness became a living network of support. On the eve of action, Kale sat at the workbench, reviewing the forged IDs one last time. His fingers trembled slightly as he slipped the final data drive into a small case. Maya placed her hand over his, steadying him. "Thank you," he whispered in his own tongue. Maya squeezed his hand and replied in hers. "We are ready." They shared a quiet nod. In that moment, words were unnecessary. Their shared purpose filled the space between them. Under the cover of darkness, they moved toward the auction house. Kale's heart pounded like a drumbeat as he approached the maintenance hatch. He slipped in, following the narrow corridor lit by dim red lights. Maya and Oren slipped beside him, carrying crates filled with tools and extra drives. Leela and the painter stood by the front gates, ready with their distraction. Each step felt heavy with tension, yet buoyed by hope. Kale drew a steadying breath and whispered, "For them." Reaching the main chamber, Kale inserted the forged drive into the security terminal. The console beeped once, then hummed quietly. As the doors unlocked, Maya and Oren slipped inside, while Kale stood watch. He saw rows of cages holding frightened aliens, shaking, hopeful eyes reflecting the soft light. His chest tightened. Every being here reminded him of his own suffering. Kale knew that freeing them was more than a mission, it was a promise. Kept, one by one, they unlocked the cages. Maya guided each captive toward the hidden exit, wrapping them in spare cloaks. Kale stayed at the terminal, ensuring no alarms tripped. When the last cage opened, he let out a breath he did not know he held. Outside, under the star-speckled sky, the rescued aliens boarded waiting shuttles. Kale stepped back into the cool night air. Maya joined him, her smile tired but radiant. Kale's heart swelled as he realized their plan had succeeded. In that silent moment, he felt the true power of kindness. It could break chains, mend hearts, and change lives forever. Under the pale light of dawn, Kale and Maya stood at the cliff's edge, overlooking the silent desert. The rescued aliens huddled around the waiting shuttles, their faces tired but bright with freedom. Kale's chest felt tight as he watched. Them, each one a testament to hope reborn. He squeezed Maya's hand, sharing a quiet moment of pride and relief. One by one, the aliens climbed into the shuttles. Kale noticed a small child with wide, fearful eyes. He knelt beside her and offered a soft smile. The girl hesitated, then reached out and took his hand. Kale guided her gently aboard, whispering soothing words in his own language. She looked back once, then turned forward, trusting him with her future. Maya checked her datapad and announced that all vehicles were ready. Engines hummed softly, like breathing giants. The aliens exchanged excited chatter, their voices weaving a tapestry of gratitude. Kale listened to their words of thanks, though he could not understand them all. In every tone he heard relief and wonder, proof that their efforts had meaning, far beyond the workshop's walls. As the last shuttle lifted into the sky, Kale felt a tug at his sleeve. He turned to see Orin and Lila approaching, their faces flushed with excitement. Orin held out a small metallic birdane, intricate ornament Kale had once admired. "For you," Orin said with a shy grin. Kale accepted it, marveling at the delicate craftsmanship. The bird's wings spread wide, as if ready to take flight. Layla offered Kale a simple garland of desert flowers, their petals pale gold. In the morning light, she placed it around his neck and whispered the new words he had learned. Kale repeated them, feeling their warmth in his chest. Maya smiled, her eyes shining with pride at how far he had come from trembling, captive to respected friend and hero. With the ceremony complete, Maya turned to Kale and placed a hand on his shoulder. "It is time," she said softly. Looked out at the horizon where the first orange streaks of sunrise burned away the night. He drew a steady breath, feeling the cool desert air fill his lungs. Then he nodded, ready for whatever came next. Maya led Kale back, toward the workshop, now transformed by their actions. The walls were lined with the gifts of friendship, paintings of alien worlds, musical instruments from distant moons, and tools sharpened by many hands. Kale's eyes glowed as he surveyed the space. In every corner he saw reminders of kindness and proof that he was not alone. Inside, Maya retrieved a slender cylinder from a hidden shelf. She handed it to Kale. His fingers trembled as he unrolled the parchment inside, a formal declaration granting him citizenship on her home station. His eyes widened as he read. The words aloud, tears sprang to his cheeks. Maya placed her hand over his heart, sharing his joy without a word. Later, they stood beneath the workshop's skylight, watching the glowing shuttles soar through the dawn sky. Kale rested his head on Maya's shoulder, feeling both gratitude and purpose. He whispered in his own tongue, "Thank you, my friend." Maya smiled and replied, "You have given us hope too." Their laughter mingled with the desert wind. As the morning sun climbed higher, Kale returned to the workbench and began to sketch new designs machines that could help rebuild shattered worlds. Maya gathered fresh tools and joined him, side by side. Each stroke of ink, each measured turn of a wrench, carried the promise of tomorrow. In that peaceful moment, Kale understood the true gift of freedom, not escape from chains, but the chance to create, to connect, and to hope again. And as he worked beside Maya, he felt certain that together, they would build a brighter future for themselves and for every soul longing for kindness under the stars.